Reflect about the fact that Jimmy Carter, more than anyone in American history, has had a Secret Service detail longer, almost 50 years.
He was so young when he left the White House, 56.
Right. And he has been protected by these men and women of the Secret Service detail in planes in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., and as you mentioned, all around the world. But I am hard-pressed to think of another American who has lived under that umbrella of Secret Service protection for that many decades and that many years. It's staggering to think that that was a significant part of his life and his family's life.
Yeah, Jeff, you think about these men, Ariana, who protected the president and then watched his children and his grandchildren grow up. Amy Carter, his daughter, was a fourth grader when they went to the White House. So literally have seen, generations of Carters and been such an integral part of each other's lives.
And we have agents that have worked and protected the president since the 1980s, the 90s, up until the 2000s, some more recently, who were there with him in his final moment. So you really have agents that represent every moment of the former president's life after he left the White House. They know him well. As I mentioned, we have the spouses, the family. They were invited to be a part of this moment because they sacrificed so much as well. Many of their family members, these agents miss holidays because they were protecting the former president. And as you mentioned, Jeff, we know the former president, he planned every moment of these ceremonies, and he wanted the agent's family to be there at this moment to say, I appreciate you for allowing your spouse to be by my side.
The details are so fitting, and what's also fitting, I think, is the simplicity of the beginning of this, because of the simplicity of the beginning of his life, and even how he started in politics on a school board. And while he rose to the greatest level that you can in American politics, that he came back to the simplicity of life in planes and deeply connected to some of the most poor and remote places around the world to the very end. Says a lot, and I feel that as I see the image here in front of the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center.
I think the symbolism of the journey from planes to Atlanta also is significant in this sense that think about all the thousands of times that he made the trek, either running for office or in office or shuttling back and forth between planes in Atlanta, and was doing that himself. I have a quick story here with one of his friends who was Charles Curbo of King and Spalding, the famous attorney, his best friend, who was also such an influential part of his life, his political life. His daughter wanted a goat. And President Carter at that time was governor, so they drove down. Brother Billy had a goat for sale.
Oh, goodness.
And these two men drove a pickup truck from the governor's mansion to Plains to pick up the goat, and then they brought the goat up, trying to hide the goat during the Christmas season, and they hid it in the state capitol. And as I think about Jimmy Carter making this trek today, the goat story is one that certainly comes to mind. But this was his life, the back and forth, the shuttle between Atlanta and Plains, as symbolic as anything that could possibly transpire today.
And also symbolic, what we're seeing right now are those hands on the hearse, just that close connection between his detail and the hearse. And Jeff and Ariana, I remember sitting with you both during Rosalind Carter's Motorcade, and this was the exact image, and we noted then, as we do now, this draw to be close that one last time as they have their hands on the hearse and they start these first steps of what will be that motorcade, as Jeff just mentioned, that will go to Atlanta, first to the Capitol and then to the Carter Center.
Yeah, such a sacred moment, because we know the White House and the Secret Service agents, they have such a deep connection. These agents are with their protectee around the clock 24/7. And this couple, they've been protected by the Secret Service agents since the 70s, since he first entered the White House. And even when he left the White House, they still have a detail. And a lot of these agents, you have two that have served with the president since the 1980s, the 1990s, and more recent. And you see the ages of these agents, which really reflects on the generations.
Yeah, they really have been the one constant in the Carters' lives. I mean, if you look at pictures, photos of Jimmy Carter from 1975 when he's running for office and he's leaping a fence at an airport, that famous shot, he's surrounded by Secret Service agents. Every time you see Jimmy Carter, pick a photo and you're going to see a Secret Service agent. So certainly that's not lost on anyone, what we're seeing now as these men continue to guard and protect his remains.
You know, you mentioned the story about the goat, which is so sweet when a governor can help you arrange a goat as a gift. You know, there's something.
And they're driving a pickup truck too. I mean,
does it
two of the
get-
most powerful guys imaginable in Charles Curbo and
More down to earth than that moment. Someone else on his staff told a story how he walked through her office and noticed a chair was broken, just picked it up, and she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to fix your chair." And he took it home to the wood shop, fixed it, and took it back to her the next day. And that was just the way it was, she said.
or him hanging out in Virginia Highland wanting to really get good at woodworking. And there's a woodworking store that has been in Virginia Highland, off North Highland, for, 45, 50 years. And Jimmy Carter would come in all sweaty, just covered in sawdust, looking for materials. And he would write a check, but then Roseland would step in and not allow him to write a check, because if he wrote a check to Highland Woodworking, somebody would not cash it, they would frame it. So she would write the check to make sure that they got the money for the glue, for the blades, for those kinds of things, for the woodworking.
All right, the hearse now.